it was Elon Musk's idea, actually, back in January, that a new party was needed in the United Kingdom. And I think I might have mentioned when I was on with you previously that I had said to him, I had responded saying that actually that's a huge challenge in the UK. And I had kind of, shied away from it. But then all the things happened with Rupert Lowe and so on. And I went back to Elon Musk in March at the same time as Rupert was experiencing the difficulties he had with reform. And so, well, actually, I've changed my mind. I think no matter how difficult it is, we must do this. And actually, I think there's a sporting chance that this may work. And Advance UK was born out of that discussion.
After staying out of British politics for 8 months, the world's richest and arguably most powerful man, Elon Musk, no longer encumbered by his former Doge role in the Trump administration, re-entered the fray in the most dramatic of terms overnight. So you'll remember he first posted the St. George's flag, then he roasted Nigel Farage for not doing so himself, then after a few hours' sleep, he made his position abundantly clear. Advance UK, he wrote, will actually drive change. Farage is weak sauce who will do nothing. Then responding to Rupert Lowe, he added, unfortunately, the reality is that Farage will do almost nothing to protect Britain. That is obvious. Existing law is clear that anyone who was an accessory to aggravated rape or murder, especially of children, is guilty of serious crime and must either serve time in prison if a citizen or be deported if not. The government simply needs to enforce the law. Now, these developments have piled the pressure on Rupert Lowe to reunite with Habib, turning them into one force. Tommy Robinson directly pleaded with Rupert this way, writing, join Advance UK, please. And I'm pretty sure, actually, and he said, we'll make Advance UK a household name in the next 12 months. We want a political home. And I'm pretty sure that Elon Musk also reposted that, as he did a post today from Ant Middleton declaring his ambition to run for the Mayor of London. Now, all of this news was a hammer blow for Reform UK, with Farage and Richard Tice, the deputy leader, continuing their careful strategy to get the billionaire, who, remember, backed the party at that Mar-a-Lago meeting in January, back on board. Watch.
Finally, Elon Musk said today, after your press conference, unfortunately, the reality is that Farage will do almost nothing to protect Britain. That is obvious. How do you respond to that?
We're leading in all the national polls. You can be friendly with someone but not agree with them on everything. And we've had our agreements with Elon Musk, who's a brilliant entrepreneur. I enjoy many of his fine products. But sometimes you can disagree with friends.
Richard Tice, thank you very much for talking to us this evening.
Thank you.
After your event yesterday, Elon Musk took to social media to criticise you. He said, Farage is weak sauce who will do nothing. What's your response?
Yeah, well, actually, Elon Musk took to social media to praise my speech, to say, go, Nigel, go. And within a few hours, he changed his mind. He was busy launching a rocket yesterday, which I'm pleased to say was a great success. And I do admire him in many ways, but his inconsistency is quite astonishing.
But Musk is on a one-man mission to expose the cover-up of the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, and it's clear he has been put off by Farage's rejection of Tommy Robinson and degradation of those of us on the so-called online right. He also posted, I would like to help fund legal actions against corrupt officials who aided and abetted the rape gang of Britain, per the official government inquiry. Who will protect the children if not the strong? Frankly, I understand why some people hate billionaires if they throw parties on yachts, make useless virtue signalling donations, but do nothing real to protect those in need. And what was actually most insane to me today is that Farage attended a lengthy press conference in Scotland where he announced Reform's first MSP has defected from the Tories, and was not asked by all of the Scottish media in attendance one question about what on earth was going on with that 14-year-old girl who was going viral all across America. Instead, and you probably will believe this, but it's still extraordinary, the BBC, the national broadcaster, the British bashing corporation, actually put forward the argument that we need more migration. Listen. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
But he might be surprised how many SNP voters might actually vote for you and vote for our party next year, so I'm sure he will have a go. Right, let's move on. James Cook, BBC National.
Thank you very much, Mr Farage. Scotland faces, in common with other parts of the UK, a demographic issue in terms of a shrinking share of the working age population and a falling birth rate. Given that, in a flatlining economy over many years now, doesn't the Scottish economy really need more migration, whether that might be legal migration, but doesn't it need more migrants rather than fewer? And
no, absolutely bloody not, BBC. And then just to show you how out of touch the media are with where the public is going, it was the Daily Mail that actually launched this astonishing personal attack on Nigel Farage.
You denied you had a women problem, but when you were introducing Graham, you said he matters to us because he's our first MSP.
Yeah.
He's not your first MSP. Michelle Ballantyne was the Scottish leader of reform for a year in the previous Parliament, but you seem to have forgotten all about it.
Well, I wasn't involved with reform at the time. You're right, but I wasn't involved with reform at the time.
Well, that doesn't say much for your respect for women that you've just forgotten about.
Oh, don't talk nonsense. I was actually busy doing other things. I wasn't in politics at the time. The party was run by someone else. I can give you chapter and verse on what's happened since the 3rd of June last year.
And we came onto this issue via Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
In her book, she also says you are odious, have a brittle, fragile ego, and are bombastic. Just for the record, to clarify, how odious, egotistical and bombastic do you think you are?
You make your own mind up. You can say whatever you like. And do you know what? I couldn't care less. Couldn't care less what she says or any of you say. I'm not interested. I'm far from brittle. I don't worry about any of it. I just do what I think's right. I came out of retirement this time last year to get back into politics because I thought I could make a positive difference. And there are a growing number of people who actually agree with that.
You do sound a bit touchy.
You can try as hard as you like, mate. Sorry. Okay, moving on to...
Well, I mean, is it a surprise? Is it a surprise that people are touchy with this mainstream media bullshit anymore? Now, of course, after the criticism from Elon Musk, as you can imagine, the Faragists, as I call them, soon out in force. And after briefly flirting with saying what he really thinks a few weeks back, Matt Goodwin was back in defend reform at any cost mode, no doubt because I'm told he has been pushed out of the party's inner circle in recent weeks and he wants back in. He posted on X, no disrespect to the people involved, but if you think Ben Habib, a person 99% of Britain have never heard of, and his party, which 99% of the country have never heard of, is the way forward, then you really don't know all that much about British politics. Britain needs urgent and radical reform. That prompted this challenge from a member of the public who wrote, Matt, I really admire and respect you, but I think if you were being honest with yourself and not playing the political game, you know in your heart of hearts that Farage does not have the mettle to make the change required. Elon saw this, I agree. But he responded, I have known Nigel Farage for 15 years. I 100% believe he will push through political change people currently think is impossible, like he did with leaving the EU. But when the National Housing Party pointed out if Farage wasn't so woke, there wouldn't be the advanced threat of reform, Goodwin responded, what are you talking about? Reform is on 33%. It is number one in the national polls. Nobody has ever done this before. If you are idiotic enough to think not good enough for me, then, with all due respect, good luck in the wilderness. Now is your one chance. Now. Reform comedian Lee Hurst added, I see the low Habib fanboys are out in force as they see their circle diminishing. They won't even work together because they are splitters. Each one's group will split again in turn. That's what they are. Big fish, small pond, and the pond is shrinking daily. My prediction is Lowe will eventually defect to the Tories and still lose his seat, and Habib will simply fade away. But Ben Habib wasn't having any of that. He criticised the Reform UK mass deportation plan, writing, "Successive governments have for decades practiced a policy of mass legal and illegal migration with all its attendant damage. It should be self-evident that this damage can only be reversed by a reversal of that policy. In other words, the solution lies in mass repatriations and the deportation of legal migrants. This would not be an extreme policy. It would be nothing more than what has already been taking place, but in reverse. It can be done peacefully and legally, but it must be done if we wish to reverse the damage to the country. Politicians seeking to appear moderate and shying away from the challenge are embedding the damage. The truly moderate approach is to adopt policies which reverse the damage done by 30 years of open borders, and of course, once again, enforcing our borders." And Advance UK leader Ben Habib is here now, fresh off that endorsement from Elon Musk. But first, let's be honest, you're watching this because you know the mainstream media can't be trusted anymore. The so-called fact checkers, they're just part of the same corrupt club. And who can forget the scandals they helped cover up or spin? Brexit lies, the COVID chaos, the relentless smears against Donald Trump. Well, I've had enough of being misled. That's why I've turned to Ground News, today's sponsor. It's the one place I go to slice through the spin, cut out the noise, and finally see the truth for myself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out for yourself. My favourite feature is the blind spot feed. It shows you which stories are blowing up on one side of politics but barely mentioned on the other, the clearest way to see media bias in action. So let me show you a story the left is ignoring. The terrorist mastermind of the 7/7 attacks could soon be back on London streets despite police fears. You'd think this would be a huge story everywhere, right? But left-leaning outlets have barely touched it. And what about on the right? Well, the UK Chancellor says the government is back in Scotland with billions in investment. It's a massive funding pledge, yet it's barely been covered by right-leaning media. With every story, Ground News shows you the entire spectrum of who's reporting from left, right, and centre, along with how reliable each source is and who owns each outlet. It's everything the corporate press doesn't want you to see. I know you love keeping up with the news, but like me, you don't buy what the legacy media are selling. So this gives you the tools for yourself to see what's really going on without the spin, without the manipulation, and without being told what to think. It's the only way I read the news now, and clearly many of you agree, as Ground News has over 10,000 five-star reviews. So go to ground.news/outspoken and stop letting the mainstream media decide the truth for you. If you subscribe through my link, you'll get 40% off the Vantage plan. That's the one I personally use for unlimited access. Supporting Ground News also supports Outspoken, so thank you for helping me keep doing what I am doing here too. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show. Ben Habib, great to have you here. Much to discuss, as I just outlined in my digest. But let's kick off with what is, for you, obviously the biggest news. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, arguably the world's most powerful man, diving headfirst back into British politics after being silent really for the past 8 months. And not just attacking your arch rival Nigel Farage and saying that he'll do no good for the country, but coming out and giving a full-throttled endorsement to your new political party, Advance UK. Did you know that this was going to happen? Because I remember last time you told me you were having some back-channel discussions with Elon Musk, but this is really ratcheted up a notch now. What's been going on?
It's great to be back on, Dan, and great to be back on in optimistic circumstances. And I think it was on your show for the first time that I mentioned publicly that I'd had a conversation with Elon Musk back in January. And it was Elon Musk's idea, actually, back in January, that a new party was needed in the United Kingdom. And I think I might have mentioned when I was on with you previously that I had said to him, I had responded saying that actually that's a huge challenge in the UK. And I had kind of shied away from it. But then all the things happened with Rupert Lowe and so on. And I went back to Elon Musk in March at the same time as Rupert was experiencing the difficulties he had with reform. And so, well, actually, I've changed my mind. I think no matter how difficult it is, we must do this. And actually, I think there's a sporting chance that this may work. And Advance UK was born out of that discussion. The discussion I had with Rupert Lowe and the discussion I had with Elon Musk. And for the last few months, as you know, I've been putting the party together. We then launched on the 30th of June. We've had a spectacular increase in the number of members. And I think Elon, who has been doing his own US orientated stuff, has nevertheless been keeping an eye on what we've been up to. And he's come on board full throttle, as you say, and which is terrific. I'm absolutely delighted that he's endorsed us. Why wouldn't I be? It's a terrific endorsement to have, and I think it's a validation of our decision to go for a political party, even though I was first reluctant to do it.
And he also clearly doesn't believe that Nigel Farage is really prepared to do what is required on the issue of mass deportations. Now, I want to show you this headline today. I mean, Tommy Robinson posted this just with 4 words: flip, flop, flip, flop. And it's from The Guardian. After this press conference in Scotland, Nigel Farage rolls back on vow to deport all small boat arrivals to the UK, telling this event in Scotland that deporting women and children is not part of his party's plan for the next 5 years. So do you believe that this was a real mass deportations plan, or was this something that Nigel had been forced into by folk like you, folk like Tommy Robinson, folk like Rupert Lowe?
He's absolutely been dragged kicking and screaming to use the word mass. He's got some aversion to using the word mass deportation, the words mass deportation. He seems to be content with the concept of mass migration into the country, but doesn't seem to recognize that if he wishes to reverse the damage created by mass migration into the country, the only solution can be mass repatriation and mass deportation of those who are illegally here. The offensive term, I don't know what it is he finds offensive about the term mass deportation. I know Farage is extremely concerned about being cancelled, but mass deportations, or the mass repatriation of people who've come to this country in the last few years, that's not the extreme policy, is it, Dan? The extreme policy that's been perpetrated against the United Kingdom is the mass migration into the country in the first place. That's been done by our political overlords against every wish expressed by the British people. Every election, just about, by any main party, Labour or Conservative, they promised to cut back on migration. And yet we've had mass migration, both legal and illegal, again and again and again, to the point now where actually mass deportations and the mass consensual repatriation of people who are here legally has to now form part of our political landscape. It's the only mechanism by which we can reverse what has happened before. But Farage is extremely nervous of it. As you know, on Steve Edgington's show last, I think, November,
yes,
he said that he thought it was a political impossibility, wouldn't go near it. And then yesterday at the press conference, even then it was performative, because he wasn't saying every illegal migrant will go back to where they came from. He said 600, they came up with a figure of 600,000. I'm not sure where they got that figure from. But what we need is the principle of an incoming pro-British government committing themselves to the deportation of everyone who is here illegally, no matter how long it takes to, and no matter how long it takes to then deport them. So even in the construction of the policy to which he was taken, as I say, kicking and screaming, he hasn't been able to be true. And then coming out this morning and saying he didn't mean women and children is really very daft, if you don't mind me saying so, because the minute you cut out a category of individual from all the illegal migrants, you say this lot are protected within that grouping, he's doing 2 things. The first is he's sending a signal to all women and children who wish to come across the channel: come in numbers, a reform government's not going to deport you. So in other words, effectively, he's through the back door legalized the illegal movement of women and children across that dangerous channel journey. not a very good move, in my view. And of course, then the other thing he's done is encourage all those women and children who are not going to be deported to argue that their husbands should stay. And I can't imagine a British court saying, well, we're going to break families up. So he's given a back route door, actually, for men also to stay. And what better way then for a man to assure that he won't be deported than to marry and have children in the United Kingdom? He's basically giving all the men that he says he would wish to deport a 4-year window in which to get married, start a family, and therefore avoid being deported. And he's undermined his own policy at day one.
Well, and what's interesting too, Ben, although maybe not surprising, he also undermined his own deputy leader, Rupert Lowe, Richard Tice, who had been saying the opposite earlier in the day. Two other things that I want to ask you about the raw politics of this. So on Rupert Lowe, Tommy Robinson is now publicly urging, and Elon Musk has retweeted these posts, so seemingly endorsing the idea of Rupert joining Advance UK. Now, of course, the last time you were here, Ben, you were very honest. You had asked Rupert Lowe to join. You had offered him the leadership. Do you think this full throttle backing from Elon Musk will make it any more likely that Rupert might change his mind and that you might unite?
I haven't had a chance to speak to Rupert this morning. Rupert was firmly of the mind that a cross-party movement is what the country needs at the moment. And I mean, I thought he was wrong then. I hope Rupert will forgive me for saying this, but I thought he was wrong then, which is why I set up the party. And I think he's self-evidently wrong now, because Advance is growing at a rate of knots. We're getting great people joining, by the way, great people joining our college, large numbers joining our membership.
Are you close to the 30,000 now? You must be.
We're close. We'll be there in the next couple of weeks. Next 2 or 3 weeks,
you'll have to come back when you get there. Then the other thing that people are saying, and look, I know this is coming from a Faragist, and I read it in my digest, but let me just read it to you again. But this is sort of the line that's being used, so I want to give you the opportunity to respond. Sure. So this is from Matt Goodwin in response to the Elon Musk post. No disrespect to the people involved, but if you think Ben Habib, a person 99% of Britain have never heard of, and his party, which 99% of the country have never heard of, is the way forward, then you really don't know all that much about British politics. British needs urgent and radical reform. Now, he said many similar things, but you get that that's the vibe where these people are coming from, Ben. How do you respond to that?
Well, I agree that Britain needs urgent, radical change, not necessarily reform. Perhaps I would say restoration is a more accurate word. I agree with the principle that we need dramatic change. But Farage ain't going to do it for all the reasons we've just discussed. He won't deport all the illegal migrants here. He won't even have a tilt at reducing the numbers of migrants who've come here legally. They've got a net zero migration policy. They say they wish to ditch DEI, but in the same breath, they acknowledge that men who've had their tackle chopped off can go into women's prisons. Well, that's taking the knee to DEI, which is the progressive discrimination that creates the requirement that we recognize men who wish to be women can be women. They're at odds with themselves. And it comes back to this fundamental point, which Matt can't seem to get his head round. And it's this, that reform doesn't have a political philosophy that's coherent. It pivots this way and that way. It doesn't represent the change the country needs. Yes, the persona of Nigel Farage is pro-British, but the reality of Nigel Farage is a cunning fox who's politically expedient and will say and do anything that curries favour with the electorate. Now, if you want another Boris Johnson kind of figure in power, who's very popular but unable to do what's needed to be done in order to save the United Kingdom, by all means, back Nigel Farage. You know, if that's what suits you, Matt, go for it. But you're not going to save the country.
There is a choice. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.